Life after trauma and a bit of drama can be all that you imagine it to be. The key is found in desiring to live a free life and the pursuit of actually living it. You will have some trying moments, but it's all part of the healing process. Just stay in the classroom. Tune in for vital lessons on how to live life freely. This is LifeClub. I'm Tashima Jones. Welcome to LifeClub. I genuinely believe personal development unlocks the door to the abundant and wonderful life we all already have. I also believe we must be intentional about seeking out that life in order to find and fulfill it. I am so grateful your journey of discovery has led you all the way here. Let's keep moving forward together. Once again, welcome to Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. Welcome. You are tuned in to a Life Club with me, Tashima Jones, and my homegirl Sunny on the board. What's up, Sunny? How are you?
I'm good. How you feeling?
Good. It's so good to see you, girl.
Yes, same here.
We are speaking about life after trauma. Once we get over something, we must then learn how to freely live after that. Oftentimes, it's not that we want to slip back into old patterns of thought and behavior, but the ignorance on how to live in our freedom hinders us from moving forward. We hear a lot about how to break free, and I wanted us to take some time to speak about how to live free.
Yeah, let's get rid of some of that trauma residue. That's what I call it. The stuff that's like left over, caked on, trying to hold on tight to you.
Trying to make
trying
a
to
comeback.
Release.
Yes.
What? Get out of here.
So there are three components of living in freedom. There's clarity of consciousness, there's releasing forms of fear, and then there's what I love, obtaining self-actualization. So for clarity of consciousness, once you experience that aha moment and have officially made peace with the person, behavior, or the event, your work becomes retraining the mind to line up with what your heart already knows. So having a clear conscience is so vital in living a full life after we experience some traumatic experiences. The issue with our minds and our brains is that it oftentimes runs on a routine, and sometimes that routine can help or hurt you. A lot of times we have negative thoughts or negative behaviors simply because it's become a habit, and not that we desire it or even that it's the real us at our core being. So the beauty in routines is that we can create new normals with practice. For example, if you've been in an unhealthy relationship for like 6 months and have become accustomed to betrayal, your mind is going to start to expect it.
Right.
You know, your mind is going to accept it as true. And the brain is constantly learning. It's literally a sponge just soaking up the environment, soaking up thoughts and the things that we experience and just collecting these things. And the brain is a muscle that we really take for granted, and we don't feed it. We don't, sometimes everybody wants to know, like, how do I get a six pack? Oh, drink this, eat that, do this, do that. But when it comes to our minds and our brains, it's just like not even.
That part is non-existent to the process, to most people.
Non-existent. And truth be told, if you have weight goals or you want to accomplish certain things, the first place you really need to go is your brain.
Mind over matter.
Yes. So when we leave certain things unchecked, our thoughts become, our beliefs, and those beliefs become habits, that whole saying, all that good stuff. So when you enter in, going back to that unhealthy relationship, when you enter into a new relationship, you're entering into that situation with like foggy glasses almost, and you're seeing the person based on your past experience instead of in a neutral space, and allowing them to, show and prove themselves for who they are.
I think that's why it's important to like take a break. If you come out of a relationship or any traumatic experience, you really need to take a moment to try to interpret what happened. Like what I said with conversations, as far as like dissecting your language and knowing yourself well enough to interpret what happened, not based off of even the other person's actions. Because then you could be like, oh, that happened, it's my fault, when it wasn't you. Mm-hmm. It may be the other part, the other party. It's mindfulness, like you said. And when you could check yourself, You won't wreck yourself.
Heard you.
You can tell I'm old, right?
Look, bad for your health. I don't know the words before that.
80s, baby. Look.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Anywho, let me not be distracted because Sunny be throwing some stuff out there. And she just take me to a whole nother place sometimes. So retraining your mind, retraining your brain, retraining yourself to adopt new habits. Recently, I found myself understanding the reality of this need in my personal life and having to actually tell myself, like, that's not who you are anymore, and I find myself, whether I have a certain thought or whether I'm behaving a certain way, I literally, like you said, have to check myself. And I literally say out loud, that is not who you are anymore. And sometimes we try to replace an old habit with a new habit right away. Right. But I do believe that there is this process, this middle ground where it's like you have to detach yourself from the old self in order to replace that habit or that thinking process with something new.
You have to debunk the codependent behavior that you may have developed. I think a lot of people don't realize that too, and they think codependency is just based off relationships. Sometimes it's a behavior trait that you have that you use to cope when things happen, and it may not be healthy. So this is why checking yourself is important. Like, am I being codependent on this scenario because I want it to be this way, or is this really what it is? And if you're not in a clear mind space, none of that will make sense to you or resonate. You'll be like, whatever, this is just what it is. No, it's deeper than that. So
it's so, like, what you said is so, so, so good. First of all, the idea of coping alone, it has this connotation of living with the pain versus dealing with the pain.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think coping, there's a period and there's a time for coping, and then there's a time for healing.
Right.
And I think once you you experience a traumatic event, you go with coping with it. And I think in that coping phase, forgiveness is necessary. Understanding is necessary.
Even anger.
Acknowledgement, anger, all of those things are necessary. But then you really have to go from coping to actually healing. You have to go to that healing place, because coping, like I said, is literally just carrying the garbage in your purse and walking around with it. And I'm coping with this. Yes.
Look,
Erica, yes. Heard you. And it's such a reality that we all have to face. And there's a time to grieve, there's a time to hurt. And as we've mentioned before here on LifeClub, sometimes you have to feel that pain. You have to feel the pain of the loss, of the rejection, of the low self-esteem, whatever the issue may be. You have to feel the pain, because in order to get through it, you have to feel it. You have to feel it, because there's never really a true sense of healing if you're detaching yourself from the pain that you're experiencing. It's kind of like your when you don't allow yourself to feel the pain, you're just taking an aspirin that doesn't get to the root of the headache. It just soothes it for a little while, and it'll always come up. So dealing with the pain, I think, in a very graceful, safe space, because some people take pain as the opportunity to wild out and do like irrational things, and that's not really healing.
No.
So definitely allowing yourself to grieve, allowing yourself to deal with the pain and to feel the pain in a safe space, be it writing, be it therapy, be it, so many other things that we can do to really feel the pain and then work our way to healing. Another thing that you said about codependence, oftentimes our fears and our pain become a comfort blanket for us. It becomes like a comfort space. And when we speak about life after trauma, sometimes we're holding on to these things because it's all we know.
It's familiar.
And
this is home. I know this pain.
Even
my dad
when
did this, like
even when it hurts, even when it's like some people walking around doing stuff and they know it's not the best thing. They just don't know how to move forward. And that's why you have to get clarity on the event. And clarity looks like closure. Clarity looks like forgiveness. Clarity looks like acknowledgement. Clarity, just bringing yourself to a space of understanding and allowing yourself to be led and to be brought to a space of understanding is where you get that clarity of consciousness. And this goes towards yourself, because a lot of people are dealing with things that they've done to themselves or that they've done to other people or that they've created with their own powers, and their choices that they've made. A lot of people are suffering in silence from guilt and from shame, from things that they have taken part in, that really they're dealing with the results and the consequences of those choices that they've made. And it's a matter of you having the key.
Right.
I think that prison
one
cell.
of the first steps is acknowledging that you feel it, that you saw what you did wrong or what happened, the event, accountability. Were you the party that messed up? No. Okay, it was them. Now what? And not staying stuck in the energy of this happened to me, because a lot of times that will pull you back away from progress, like accountability. Who did it? Why did I interact with this person this way? Why did I allow it? Or did I allow it? So many questions you have to really ask yourself in the process. That way you're not, one, beating yourself up, or two, being judgmental, because you could judge yourself or the other party too, and that's not the purpose of dissecting these things and looking into it. It's never to judge or to point the finger. It's really to figure out, how did I allow myself to get in this space? And how can I prevent this from happening again? And if I feel it and I see what I'm doing wrong, how do I change it? Because I don't like how I feel when I do this, and like you said, people have negative coping mechanisms like drinking and drugs, or even sometimes sex addictions. You don't want to fall into a space where you use that vice every time. The only way to avoid that is to really know what your triggers are and how you interpret it when it happens, so you can stop it from being another episode of you hurting yourself, trying to get over or trying to get past whatever that moment is. Because literally, it's just a moment.
It's a moment, and it's something that can be a classroom.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that, once we become adults and we're outside of our parents' supervision, and once we graduate from school, and once we are really like fully developed, and development is like a whole nother level, because you could be 65 and not be fully developed. That's a whole nother conversation, whole nother show. But I think that people think that class is not in session after graduating from an institution. And that's so far from the truth. And I think when we allow ourselves to be students of life, and we allow ourselves to understand and recognize that personal development is an ongoing thing, I think it gives us the grace to continue to grow. A lot of people are stuck because they feel like, well, I'm 35, so I should have it together by now.
And they're stuck right there. It never goes beyond that thought. Like, now what, though?
I should have it together. There. Well, if you don't have it together,
right,
perhaps you still have some growing to do. And it's okay. I think in our society, we're so caught up on titles and demographics that we don't allow ourselves to be human, and we don't allow other people to be human in the sense of where this evolution of self on the inside, it's just stifled and snuffed out almost, because we are looking at the exterior things that deem us as adults, or deem us as successful, or deem us as, great.
Right. And those rules are you living by, though?
Yes, girl.
Whose rule? Like,
yes. I when I found myself married with a child, sunny Florida, driving the BMW, platinum wedding ring, it was like, hold up, America's dream is not my dream. It's not my dream, because I've obtained this idea of success, of what I thought, was success, or what I was taught was success. And then when you have those things and you feel empty, at that point, you have to look in the mirror and say, okay, who am I? Right. How did I end up here? And where do I want to go from here? Because it's not over. I think the strongest part of our humanity is finding ourselves in a space of weakness, to where we're vulnerable enough to receive the lessons of life and hear the voice, of the spirit, and really, girl, yes, and really just allowing ourselves to be human. I think we've stripped ourselves of our humanity and creating these androids of what a human's supposed to look like.
Carbon copies of each other, when that's really not the idea. And when you mention that, and having everything in abundance and realizing you still want whole, it is such a blessing that you could even look at that moment and say, hey, something is still missing. Because most people fail to identify that feeling. They'll be in that space where they have everything material, and they'll never stop to say, why am I not happy? because they're still going based off of other people's rules and perceptions of what happiness is and what they're supposed to be doing in life by a certain time. So it's such a blessing that you were able to say, you know what, I have everything and I'm still not where I want to be. And not only acknowledge it, but take a step to actually say, I got to get it. I gotta follow what my spirit is telling me. I gotta move. I gotta do something, because this is not it. I know I have everything, but it's not enough.
And then the thing about it is that what people do when they get to that point of, you know, cultural success and they feel that void, they try to get more. They try to get a higher salary. They try to get a bigger house. They try to go on more grander trips. They try to buy, and they're trying to fill like this void, and it's just like this black hole, and it's just like
getting bigger.
It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that comes back to, you know, the vulnerability that we have to experience in order for us to really face ourselves, because we are the Goliath. Like, we are our own Goliath. We are our own Goliath, and it's really important for us to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror. Again, just going back to some of the conversation that we had earlier about trying to figure everybody else out. Baby girl, baby boy.
There's no way to do it.
You know the situation.
Right, there you go. Look.
Look, right? It's like you have to acknowledge self. You have to acknowledge who you are, even if that's acknowledging that you don't know who you are, even if it's acknowledging that you don't necessarily like who you are. And I guarantee you the only reason why you do not like yourself is because you do not know yourself. Because if you knew who you truly, truly were, you would wake up every day happy and go to sleep like a baby every night. So getting to know yourself, the true you, the core being that exists on the inside, is so important, again, to this having this clear consciousness, having this understanding of who you are, who you were before you came out of your mother's womb. Like, it's so important for you to really take a trip like back to really understand who you are. And when you reach that point of true self and true identity and understanding that you have purpose and you have value, and everything, every traumatic experience was just an event. It was a moment. Like Sunny said, it wasn't your life. It wasn't who you are. You get to the space where you have a clear conscience. You get to the space where you can truly detach from toxic thoughts and toxic behaviors and truly, truly move forward to a space of joy, peace, and elevation, you know? And speaking about, you know, toxic thoughts and toxic behaviors, I wanted to go on to the next point, which is releasing forms of fear. We have to release toxic beliefs, which is just fear. Like, toxic beliefs, negative beliefs is literally what fear is. Taken apart, fear is simply the belief that what we least desire will manifest. And when you think about it carefully, you know, fear shows up differently to everybody.
Right.
Because you have people who are afraid of heights and they won't get on a plane. Then you got people who would jump out of planes for fun.
What? Adrenaline junkies. I'm good, though. Not tied.
So it's just like, when you recognize that fears are really what we make it, and fears are really just, I guess, they masquerade as the things that we don't want to happen. We're able to, you know, attack those fears. We're able to release them. We're able to let them go. And as mentioned, fear is what we least want to happen. So you're not necessarily afraid to leave your job that you despise. You're more afraid of not having the provision to actually pursue your goal. So you're not afraid to leave your job.
Right.
I'm not encouraging that, but if you feel led, please.
If you got to walk in there every day and you like, yo, bump this place, I don't need this. If you got a migraine when you walking up the block, it's time to go.
When people leave their jobs and they go pursue their purpose, I always congratulate them. It's a whole nother story, though.
We happy. That's why we happy. Look at us. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, yes, freedom. We're sitting here talking about freedom, right? So you're really not afraid, you know, to leave your job. The fear is really in not having the provision for food and clothes and things of that nature. Let's consider relationships. You're not really afraid to love again. In fact, you actually really, really want to love again. You just fear rejection, and you fear the lack of acceptance and intimacy. So naming the fear and recognizing what it is allows you to release them. And just going on, speaking about basic needs, with the idea that fears are, they masquerade themselves as you not having a need or having something that you do not want to happen.
Right.
Because when you think about it, anything you've ever feel, you could be so excited about a project, and then like one instance of it failing, you're like, I don't know.
Ooh.
It'll take over all of the excitement that you had. Again, fear is believing that the thing that you don't want to happen will happen. And it's at that point where you can release that fear and replace it with your faith. Replace it with what you believe in. Replace it with the excitement that you had when the idea first dropped into your spirit.
Yeah.
When the thought first came to you, you're super excited, and then we list like 10 things on how it could go wrong before we even start to pursue it. So it's super important for us to understand that in order to release toxic behaviors and release forms of fear, we have to be honest with ourselves as to what it is. And when we can identify a thing, we can then eradicate it, if you will.
Yeah, you need to identify your fears for law of attraction purposes also, because the thing that you fear the most, you would then draw to you because you're constantly thinking about it. It's taking up most of your thought process when you should be actually planning what you want to happen versus what you want not to happen. So be mindful of that. And this is why you must, again, identify what it is, break it down, and say, why am I even afraid of this? Like, what happened to me that is triggering me to have this moment where I think this is going to happen? Because that little auntie doubt, when she comes, that's like the aunt of fear. She's like, oh, I'm here to kiss you. That annoying aunt. I don't have one of those. Let me just say that. But the annoying aunt that comes to kiss you all over your face and all that, that's doubt. She comes to lay her lips on you, and she will trigger fear and make you think that your grand idea will not work. When you have any ounce of fear, I want you to start to cancel it. If it's a negative thought, cancel it. Hey, nope, because you bad. You don't belong here. You understand? Think about the reasons. For every reason it won't work, say 3 reasons why it will. Because you need to really cancel out. Even if it doesn't work, again, take the lessons. It's not just about, because fear will stop you, because things will not happen like you said, and then you'll go, oh, I'm never doing that again. No, do it again and again and again, because every time you're doing it, it's for a reason.
And the thing about it is that if you don't deal with the fear, it will continue to show up in your life.
It's going to haunt you.
It's going to continue to show up in your life because
Sorry.
Because the reality of it is this, and I've been open to some people in my life about the fear of rejection and even like this battle that I've had with jealousy. And what I've recognized is that every time I would see a certain type of person or a certain, whether it be a woman who's successful or a woman in authority or things of that nature, and I feel like this tension or I feel like this sense of jealousy come over me, I started to observe when those things would happen. I started to observe if I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see something and I start feeling some type of way. I really started to observe when those feelings came to me. And then when I recognized that, I started to ask, well, why is this bothering you? Or what about this is bothering you? What happened in your past that makes you feel this way towards this person? Because it's not really a person. It's just an image of a thing.
Right.
It's like this. There's certain qualities that cause you to feel some type of way about something. And what I recognize is that, due to bullying that I experienced and due to maybe being the girl in the neighborhood who didn't have much, I saw that the people who teased me, look this way. And they carry themselves this way, and they have this and they have that. So as an adult woman, a phenomenal woman, that's me.
Well, talk about it.
I started to recognize those were triggers for me.
Right.
Because these people look like the people who may have bullied me, or they embody the things that I didn't have as a younger child.
So it was a threat versus it being, I get it.
So then I started to deconstruct that fear and really take that thought captive and really kill that Goliath that was in me. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people, talk about haters and they talk about the enemies and all that other stuff. To be honest, like, your thoughts are haters and your thoughts are enemies. It's no human being on earth that is truly your enemy, because 9 times out of 10 that person is hurting, or that person is battling something in their own mind, and you just may very well look like the enemy to them. You know what I'm saying? So when we take, step back and check our thoughts and check our energy and check the spirit that we're carrying ourselves in, we start to really dismantle those fears and dismantle those toxic behaviors and those toxic thoughts that we really have grown into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because babies come out crying, thinking about milk, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
And over time they develop. But what I really want people to understand is that fear is taught.
It is.
Fear is taught. Like, for a long time, and this is something that kind of, came up in my spirit recently, like I was taught to dim my light. I was taught, whether it was in being in a household with men, and it's like, all right, baby girl, don't go too close, or put this on, or you know what I'm saying, to where it's like it was a protective mechanism, but then it also made me feel uncomfortable around men. And then growing up in a household where my father wasn't really present, but there were still men in the house, you cower down and you start to feel some type of way, or you can't feel beautiful as an adult woman where it's appropriate. You know what I mean? So this is learned behavior that I just became accustomed to. Or if I'm around a certain group of people who don't necessarily like how I speak, and they feel like I read too much and I do well in school, it's like, oh, it's not school. Why are you speaking like that? I literally had people tell me that.
Wow.
So then it became me dumbing myself down.
Trying to talk
to
like
fit
them.
in.
Oh my gosh.
And again, this is years, years of practice, years of practicing how not to be my full self, years of practicing how not to allow my light to shine, years of practicing, how to just be a shadow, or, be unseen.
So how do you debunk those things? Like, what's the process for you? Is like identifying it. Like you said, I know you said when you see it, you're like, oh, but like, how do you fix it? Now you're at the point where you can be mindful enough to say, hey, that made me feel some type of way. What's like the next step in looking into it?
I think in order to even get to the space of desiring to see it is really wanting to be better. It's having the desire to want to be better.
Right.
It's having the desire to want to be free. And I think that's the first part. And it's actually acknowledging. I'm getting emotional. But that's normal way up.
Right.
But actually wanting to be free, actually being tired of feeling held captive inside your own body, inside your own spirit, inside your own soul. Like, girl, you're about to have to press that red button.
Bloop, 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 bloop.
But seriously, being so ready to develop and ready to grow and really ready to learn and really ready to face yourself. Really ready to look in the mirror of your soul and say, I want to be better. So when you get to that point, that automatically thrusts you into, okay, what we got to do?
Action mode. Let's go.
Now it's like, all right, I'm here.
Right.
I showed up for class.
Right.
What do I have to do? And I think the next step is definitely just prayer and meditation, honestly. I think you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? And I truly believe that we are led by a spirit. We are led by a spirit being who has all of the answers to every single problem before they even came to be.
Right.
And I think there's just like this reservoir just hovering over you, just waiting to shower you with healing, with blessings, with gifts, and just this wonderful life. And it really comes to a space where you acknowledge the desire to want to be better, and then opening up yourself to hear from it. And now God may send you some people to tell you about yourself and speak the truth in love. And you're going to have to hold that. You're going to have to keep that same energy you had when you was like, I want to be better. And that's the other thing. I think, matter of fact, I know, and I've experienced times when I knew I was in a room, or I knew I was in a space or a predicament or a season in my life where it was a season to learn and to develop on the inside. And I knew that even when I would go home and cry, or go to the bathroom and cry and come back out like refreshed and renewed, I knew I had to stay there. And that's the thing. You have to stay in the classroom until you graduate.
Yeah, that's where the fight is.
You got to stay in the classroom until you graduate. And sometimes it's sooner than you think.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sooner than you think. But again, you have to feel the pain. You have to, and it's kind of like math or science or any subject that you are not so great at, where it's like, this is giving me a headache,
Right.
but I really want to do well in this class, so I'm going to do what I need to do to learn the subject, and to develop in it so that I can graduate from this, you know. So just get into the space where you acknowledge outside and you truly in your core being desire this, because sometimes we say a lot of stuff that we don't really mean, but you have to get to the space where you truly mean that you want to be healed from this, and then, you know, opening up yourself to be led to those spaces of healing. And then once you get in a classroom, stay there. Stay there. If you were just tuning in, we are speaking about life after you hear that, New York? After. Life after trauma. First, we were speaking about clarity of conscience and consciousness. And I wanted to make a point about that. Is clarity doesn't mean that you know everything. You just arrive to this space of knowing that you need to know more. I don't think we'll ever, you know, inhale the depth of spirit and the depth of the universe in our lifetimes. Honestly, I truly believe that clarity and being conscious is just knowing what you know, and knowing that there's so much more to know. And part of having clarity after traumatic events is understanding that certain events were just for a moment. They do not define who you are. Neither do they cancel out your destiny. And then the next topic we were speaking about was releasing forms of fear, understanding that fear masquerades itself as a need not manifested, whether you need safety or you need intimacy or you need acceptance. Usually fear hangs on to those things, and it really tries to snuff out your faith, and it tries to snuff out this belief that all is well. So we left off and went to our break speaking about releasing those toxic thoughts and toxic behaviors. Last but not least, I really wanted to speak about self-actualization. And it's really this idea of purpose and reaching your fullest, like your full potential. And I had like this aha moment over the weekend. I fell asleep next to the window. I felt like I was on a beach, girl. The sun was shining around my plants.
What?
I just felt really good. And I had this aha moment where I recognized that self-actualization is not necessarily obtaining this sense of success when it comes to being on earth and whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's financial. It's not really being at the top of your game. Like a lot of people, you know, speak about Beyonce or, you know, Oprah and all of these people who have reached this highest, you know, the highest level of what their field is, you know. But what I really recognized and really received the revelation about is that you reaching your fullest potential is you being your full self every moment of your life.
That's it.
And being your full self every moment of your life allows you to obtain those heights that we see culturally and that we could see on the surface.
Right.
But the truest form of success and self-actualization is being your full self. You know, one of the questions that we ask on, you know, the same 7-hour rapid fire round of questions is, when do you feel most like yourself? And I was actually asked this question over the weekend, and my response was every single day. And when I am not feeling myself, feeling myself. I'm sorry. I literally, and I feel like Sunny's the same way. I literally have a bar or a lyric for every
we are
like
human jukeboxes. This is why we are on radio right now.
Every like conversation.
Everyone.
It's like if I don't say it out loud, I hear it in my head. So pardon me. But when I am not being my full self, I feel this sense of betrayal.
Right.
I feel the sense of being disloyal to myself, to the point where I truly believe I'm placed inside of certain rooms to outgrow that
Right.
feeling of like, I can't be myself in this room.
Right, because there's guilt that's attached to that too. When you don't do it, you got to walk away feeling like a bum. Like, man,
Feeling
that
real
wasn't
whack in
even
these
me.
streets.
Like, yo, they don't even know me now. Like, I
And
messed up.
you know how sometimes you say stuff and it's like, girl, you know you don't believe that.
What?
Why would you say that? Like, you know you feel a whole nother type of way about this situation.
But that's your upbringing again, where you're taught to kind of agree with the terms versus saying, nah, I don't think that's right.
And even in some cases where there's, you know, you could be in a space where people think you are so dope, you know, and then you don't feel it yourself. And that is a problem in itself as well, you know.
It's a lack of
So it's
confidence.
really just maneuvering through this toxic behavior, maneuvering through old habits, maneuvering through all of these fears to really give birth to your core being, giving birth to the person that you were created to be. That is self-actualization.
Push.
You got to push.
Hey, yeah, we both dancing.
You got to, see, that's Martin, and I know that's associated with another song. I just don't know
Right.
the song, but I remember the
I
episode
think
of
that's
Martin.
That's Gina's song. Well, Tisha Campbell. That's her
Come
actual record.
on.
Yeah. So there we go. I hope that was right. Listen, if that wasn't right, call up now. Tell me it wasn't right.
And let us know so we
Right.
can give the proper credit.
Right. Google
to whom
facts.
it's due.
Let's go.
So, self-actualization, and this is something that I was like, you know, I've heard about it in times past, and you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all this good stuff, and I've heard it on different platforms over the years. And it wasn't until I pushed through, you know, to get clarity, and I pushed through the releasing of these toxins, that I was really able to elevate to this level of genuinely wanting to be me. And it's so amazing because when I was in elementary school, you know how you have those projects in language arts and you got to write poems, and I wrote a poem, and my last few bars was, I want to be me. I want to be me. Can't you see? I just want to be me. I will never forget that line. I'm about to cry right now because even in that young, tender age, my goal was always to be myself. I'm about to cry. I'm gonna bring it in. I'm working on it because I can't be snot nose on here trying to share some energy with you guys.
They might appreciate the snot.
Perhaps. But I remember that, and it's like, again, you know, fast forward to where I am now and still having that desire, but being blessed enough to actually fulfill that desire, because we all just want to be ourselves, and we all want to be accepted for being ourselves. However, when you really want to be yourself, it really doesn't matter whether or not you're accepted. And again, you speak the truth in love. You operate and you move through this energy of love, because that's your core being too. You know, a lot of people like, well, this is just me. Take it or leave it. No, no.
No, I'm gonna leave it because I don't want any attitude like that.
Yes, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
when we really just get to this space where we desire to want more out of life, and really, you know, desire to be free from those things that we've been held captives to for so long, and get to this space of self-actualization, which is simply being your full self 24/7, you really start to live a life. It's like coming out of water and taking like
Your first breath. Yeah.
your first breath.
That's that birth you was talking about. And then even in this process, I want to mention making mistakes and allowing yourself to do that. Have fun. Like in this rebirth that you're experiencing, when you're trying to figure out who you are, if you make a mistake along the way, it's okay. How about the mistake was meant to happen for you to figure out that you shouldn't do it anymore? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to go through this process and really flow through it with that mindset of saying, this is new. I'm learning me. I'm going to have fun, and I'm allowed for error. You know, well, I'm allowed to make errors, excuse me. You know how when they say make time for error when you're traveling, right? Like leave 15 minutes early. Well, give yourself that same space to enjoy the process and really allow a room, space, leave a little compartment. Hey, I might mess up. I might screw that up one time for your mind. But I know when I mess it up, I have the what's the word I'm looking for? I have the space also to correct it. I'm not just going to be like, oh, I messed up, man. I can't ever. No, that's part of the process.
And that space needs to be filled with grace.
What? Great. The box of grace. That's where you're Thank you. That's where the stuff go. Put it in the box, label it grace, and go back and look at it and say, this is where I need to give myself grace. This is what I need to say, hey, it wasn't that bad.
And the thing about grace is that when you live a life of grace, you don't find yourself, you find yourself in less bitter situations.
What?
Because grace is forgiving as you go. It's like, okay, you slipped up, okay, catch your balance, keep it moving. And I think we really, with this whole entire process, we have to understand the power of our words. And we have to understand how we use our words, and we have to understand how, going back to that baby, when the baby falls, is that literally a mistake, or is it just a process of learning?
It's a process.
It's a process of learning. So we can't get so hung up on, or we can't use these definitive words or these negative words to define our process of learning.
Right.
And again, when you have this box of grace, that's good.
We need to keep that. Don't steal it.
We're going to bring a box in here next week. Come with this box, put some stuff in there. So when you allow yourself grace and you shift your language, and that was a huge part of my healing process, and of course it will continue to be forever and ever, is the power of the word and the power of how speaking things into existence can literally shift your atmosphere, literally shift your environment. And even when you start speaking, you keep speaking and you keep speaking and you keep speaking, because your faith will then become your reality through your words. And sometimes you got to speak words of enlightenment and elevation, even when your mind doesn't even understand or believe it at that moment.
Your darkest hour.
Because we're always, faith comes through hearing.
Right.
And hearing the word.
Right.
And a lot of us are hearing stuff that we shouldn't be hearing.
Garbage.
Listening to things that we shouldn't listen to and expose ourselves to. So truly, truly create that box of grace. That's some good stuff. We got to copyright that.
Right. Your ass, I was like, don't steal it. Look, we said it.
Give your space, give yourself grace, give yourself time, and open up to this reality of the amazingly wonderful, fearfully wonderful you, and allow yourself to take that journey on life after trauma / drama.
Hey.
This is the Life Club with Tashima Jones, my homegirl Sunny on the board. Super excited to join you all as always. Shout out to everyone who's listening to the podcast near and far. We'll probably share some of those locations the next time. But we're just really excited to share this and every single moment with you guys. Sunny, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram under I am Sunny Savage.
Heard you.
Right,
That's
was my
like
phone
Quiet
sex
Storm.
operator. I'm sorry.
That's like Quiet Storm voice.
I don't know where that came from.
And I'm Tashima Jones. You can find me on TashimaJones.com. All of my social media and contact information can be found there. Until next time, remember your greatness. Talk soon. I am Tashima Jones, and you've been listening to Life Club. Thank you for tuning in.